Welcome back to Mr. Midnight. Tonight, we're heading to Arizona, but I need to warn you before we start. What happened in these 8 small towns? It's not something you forget. These are real people, real events, and most of them never made it into the news because someone made sure they stayed buried. I'm talking about towns where the entire population just vanished overnight. Places where rescue calls came in, but when help arrived, there was nobody left to save. Desert roads where drivers saw things that made them abandon their vehicles and run, and the people who survived, some of them are still hiding, still looking over their shoulders, because they know it's not over. These aren't old stories passed down for generations. These happened in the last 2 years. Recent enough that the files are still classified. Recent enough that you could drive to these towns right now if you're brave enough. If you're new to Mr. Midnight, subscribe now because we uncover the horror. Stories that were meant to stay hidden. Hit that bell or you'll miss what comes next. Now turn off the lights, lock your doors, because what you're about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about the desert. Let's begin with story number 1. My name is Tommy Reeves, and for the past 3 months, I've been calling into the same radio show every single night. I'm 34 years old, unemployed since a construction accident messed up my back, and I live alone in a beat-up trailer about 15 miles outside Coyote Springs, Nevada. The accident left me with chronic pain and insomnia that keeps me awake most nights, staring at the ceiling until the sun comes up. The only thing that gets me through those long, dark hours is a late-night radio show called Desert Nights on KDES 94.7 FM. The DJ is this guy named Marcus Rodriguez, and he's got this smooth, calming voice that makes you feel like you're talking to an old friend. He takes calls from lonely people like me, plays classic rock, and just talks about life. For someone who spends most days alone, Marcus became the closest thing I had to human contact. But what happened on September 13th, 2023, changed everything I thought I knew about that radio show, and about myself. Let me tell you about my situation first, so you understand why that radio show meant so much to me. After my accident at the construction site, I got hooked on pain pills. Started with what the doctor prescribed, but when that wasn't enough, I found other ways to get them. Lost my job when they caught me stealing tools to sell for drug money. Lost my girlfriend when she realized I chose pills over getting clean. Lost contact with my family when I became too ashamed to face them. My trailer sits on a patch of desert scrub that the landlord rents cheap because nobody else wants it. No neighbors for miles. The closest town is Coyote Springs, and that's just a gas station, a diner, and maybe 200 people who keep to themselves. My disability payments barely cover rent and food. I'd been thinking about ending it all, honestly. The pills, the loneliness, the shame. It was getting to be too much. That's when I discovered Marcus and Desert Nights. The show ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and Marcus had this way of making everyone who called feel important. He'd remember your name, ask about your problems from previous calls, and play songs that somehow matched exactly how you were feeling. I started calling in regularly around September, usually around midnight when the silence in my trailer became unbearable. Marcus always took my calls. We'd talk about my insomnia, my back pain, how I was trying to stay clean. He never judged me, never made me feel like a failure. Sometimes he'd play a song for me, usually something by Johnny Cash or Tom Petty, artists who sang about hard times and surviving them. For those few minutes on the phone with Marcus, I didn't feel so alone. September 13th started like any other sleepless night. I'd been awake for about 72 hours straight, my back was killing me, and I'd gotten another eviction notice that day. I popped open a beer and turned on the radio at exactly 11 p.m., like I did every night. "Good evening, desert dwellers," Marcus said in that familiar voice. "Welcome to Desert Nights. I'm Marcus Rodriguez, and I'll be with you until the sun comes up. We've got a long night ahead, so let's start with something to set the mood." He played "Hurt" by Johnny Cash, which hit me hard because I'd been thinking about my dad all day. Dad died when I was 25, and I never got to tell him I was sorry for all the stupid things I'd done. At 11:15, I called in like usual. The phone rang twice before Marcus picked up. "Desert Nights, you're on with Marcus." "Hey Marcus, it's Tommy Reeves." "Tommy, Good to hear from you, man. How's the insomnia treating you tonight? Not great. Haven't slept in 3 days. Got some bad news today about my place. Sorry to hear that, brother. You want to talk about it? I told him about the eviction notice, about how I was thinking of just giving up. Marcus listened like he always did, made some encouraging comments about how things could turn around. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. Remember, Tommy, the desert holds secrets. Some things are better left buried. I dropped the phone. Marcus had said those exact same words to me the night before, word for word, in the exact same tone. I was sure of it. I picked up the phone, but Marcus had already moved on to another caller, some woman named Beth, talking about her divorce. But I could swear I'd heard that exact conversation before too. The same details, the same emotions, even the same song request at the end. At 11:45, I called back. Desert Nights, Marcus here. Marcus, it's Tommy again. Did we just talk a few minutes ago? Tommy? No, man, this is the first time you've called tonight. You feeling okay? That confused me. I was sure we'd just talked, but Marcus sounded genuine, and I was pretty sleep-deprived. Maybe I was mixing up nights? Yeah, sorry, just tired. Can you play? Something by Tom Petty? Absolutely, brother. This one goes out to Tommy, fighting the good fight. He played Learning to Fly, just like he had the night before, and the night before that. How had I not noticed this pattern? At midnight, the show seemed to restart completely. Same opening music, same good evening desert dwellers greeting, even the same Johnny Cash song. But this time, I was paying attention. The first caller was the same woman, Beth, with the same divorce story. Word for word, the same pauses, the same sniffles, the same song request. Then came a trucker named Dale with the exact same story about missing his daughter's birthday. Then an elderly man named Frank talking about his dead wife. Every single call was identical to what I'd heard the night before. And the night before that, I grabbed a notebook and started writing down what people said, checking it against my memories. Everything matched perfectly. The show was playing the same content over and over, night after night, but that was impossible. It was live radio. Marcus was taking real calls from real people, wasn't he? At 12:15, I called in again. Desert Nights, you're on with Marcus. Marcus, is this a rerun? Are you playing recorded shows? A rerun? No, Tommy, this is live. Real people, real stories. Are you sure you're feeling okay? But his voice sounded different this time. More distant, almost mechanical. Marcus, you said something earlier about the desert holding secrets. Do you remember saying that? There was a long pause. Then Marcus laughed, but it didn't sound like his usual laugh. Tommy, you know this isn't real, don't you? The line went dead. I sat there staring at the radio, my heart pounding. What did he mean, this isn't real? The show was still playing. Now they were taking calls from other people. But everyone sounded hollow, like they were reading from scripts. At 12:30, something impossible happened. I heard my own voice calling in. Desert Nights, you're on with Marcus. Hey Marcus, it's Tommy. Tommy Reeves. It was my voice, but I wasn't on the phone. I was sitting in my trailer, listening to myself have a conversation I didn't remember having. Tommy, good to hear from you, man. How's the insomnia treating you tonight? Actually, Marcus, I wanted to ask you about tomorrow. Something's gonna happen tomorrow, and I'm scared. Tomorrow? But this was supposed to be tonight's show. How could I be talking about tomorrow? What's gonna happen, Tommy? I'm going to find out the truth. About the pills I took. About how long I've been here. About why nobody's come looking for me. My hands started shaking. What pills? I hadn't taken any pills tonight. I'd been clean for weeks. Tell me about the pills, Tommy. All of them, the whole bottle of Oxy, plus the fentanyl patches. I just wanted the pain to stop, Marcus. I didn't think about what would happen after. I jumped up and ran to my bathroom. The medicine cabinet was empty, but I remembered it being full of pill bottles just yesterday. Didn't I? When I got back to the radio, Marcus was talking directly to me, even though I wasn't on the phone. Tommy, check your calendar. What day is it really? I looked at the calendar on my wall. September 13th was circled in red, but underneath, in my own handwriting, it said 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago? But today was September 13th, wasn't it? I ran outside to check my mailbox. Empty. No new mail, no old mail, just empty. The newspaper I thought I'd picked up that morning was nowhere to be found. My trash cans were empty too, like I hadn't been eating or throwing anything away. Back inside, I opened my refrigerator. Everything was spoiled. The milk was chunky and green, the bread was covered in mold, the lunch meat looked like it had been rotting for weeks. But I remembered eating, just yesterday. Didn't I? I called the radio station back, but this time a different voice answered. You've reached KDES. We're currently playing automated programming. If this is an emergency, please hang up and dial 911. Wait, what about Marcus Rodriguez? What about Desert Nights? Sir, we don't have a show called Desert Nights, and no DJ named Marcus Rodriguez. We play automated classic rock from midnight to 6 a.m. I hung up and checked the radio. Still playing the same show, Marcus still taking calls. But the station said they had no Marcus Rodriguez. At 1 a.m., Marcus spoke directly to me again. Tommy, you've been dead for 2 weeks. This is your limbo. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Dead? But I was sitting right here. I could feel my heartbeat, feel my breath. Check your pulse, Tommy. I pressed my fingers to my neck. Nothing. I tried my wrist. Nothing. I held my hand under my nose. No breath. You took all your pain. Medication on August 30th. You've been lying in that bedroom for 2 weeks, Tommy. Your body is decomposing while your mind plays this loop over and over. I stumbled to my bedroom. The door was closed, and I realized I hadn't been in there for how long. I turned the handle and pushed it open. The smell hit me first. Sweet and rotten, like meat left in the sun. Then I saw myself lying on the bed, bloated and gray, surrounded by empty pill bottles. My lips were blue, my eyes were cloudy, and my skin was mottled with dark patches. I was looking at my own corpse. I slammed the door and ran back to the living room, but Marcus was still talking. Now you understand, Tommy. This radio show, these conversations we've been having, they're not real. You're stuck in a loop of your own making, reliving the same night over and over because you're afraid to face what you've done. What I've done? I just wanted the pain to stop. Not just the physical pain, Tommy. The emotional pain. The guilt. The shame. You've been running from that your whole life. The radio crackled, and suddenly other voices came through. Voices I recognized. Tommy, why didn't you come to my graduation? That was my daughter, Sarah. I hadn't seen her in 5 years. You stole from us, Tommy. We trusted you. That was my old foreman at the construction site. I called you 47 times asking for help, and you never answered. That was my mother's voice. Mom had died 6 months ago, and I'd been too ashamed to go to her funeral. You chose drugs over everything, Tommy. Over me, over your family, over your life. That was Jessica, my ex-girlfriend. Marcus's voice cut through the others. This is your judgment, Tommy. You have to face what you've done before you can move on. I don't want to face it. I just want to go back to the way things were. There is no going back. You made your choice when you swallowed those pills. Now you have to live with the consequences. Or rather, die with them. The voices kept coming. Every person I'd hurt, every promise I'd broken, every time I'd chosen drugs over responsibility. My daughter's voice was the worst. Daddy, I cut myself because I thought if I hurt enough, maybe you'd come back. Maybe you'd love me enough to stay alive. I broke down completely. I'm sorry. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, Marcus said. You were too busy feeling sorry for yourself to think about how your actions affected other people. I was in pain. I was trying to survive. You were killing yourself slowly, and you took everyone who loved you down with you. Your mother died alone in a hospital because you were too ashamed to visit. Your daughter is in therapy because she thinks your death was her fault. Jessica had to change her number because you kept calling her when you were high, saying terrible things. Each revelation was like a knife to my chest. I saw now what I'd been running from all these months. It wasn't just the physical pain from my accident. It was the pain of knowing I'd become someone my father would have been ashamed of. What happens now? I asked. That's up to you, Tommy. You can keep running this loop forever, living in denial, or you can accept what you've done and face your judgment. What does that mean? It means admitting that you chose this. that you chose death over getting help, that you chose isolation over facing your problems, that you wasted every chance people gave you to get better. I thought about that for a long time, about all the opportunities I'd had to get clean, to make amends, to be a better person, about how I'd thrown them all away because it was easier to blame everyone else for my problems. I did this, I said finally. I chose this. I was a coward, and I hurt everyone who tried to love me. Yes, Marcus said simply. What's my punishment? You've already chosen it, Tommy. You lived alone, and now you'll be alone forever. No more radio shows, no more voices, just you and your guilt for eternity. The radio went silent, complete silence. No static, no music, nothing. I tried turning the dial, but every station was dead. I tried my phone, but there was no signal. I went outside, but there were no sounds, no wind, no insects, no distant traffic, just absolute silence. I'm still here in my trailer, but it's not really a trailer anymore. It's just nothing. A space where I exist with my memories and my guilt. I can think about all the things I did wrong, all the people I hurt, but I can't talk to anyone. I can't apologize. I can't make amends. I can't even cry anymore. Sometimes I think I hear my daughter calling for me, or my mother asking why I never visited. But when I try to answer, there's no sound. My voice is gone. My chance to speak is over. The worst part is knowing that everyone I left behind is dealing with the aftermath of my selfishness. Sarah blames herself for my death. Jessica feels guilty for not trying harder to help me. My old friends from construction think they should have seen the signs. They're all carrying pieces of my pain now, and I can't do anything to ease their burden. A week after I died, my landlord found my body. The coroner said I'd been dead for exactly 2 weeks. They found the radio tuned to KDES, but the station confirmed they'd been playing automated music all night. No live DJ, no call-in show. But sometimes, late at night, my neighbors say they can hear a voice coming from my empty trailer. Someone calling into a radio show that doesn't exist, begging for forgiveness that will never come. Marcus, please let me start over. I'll be better this time. Please don't make me face this again. But Marcus is gone. The show is over, and I'm exactly where I chose to be, alone with the consequences of a lifetime of selfish decisions. If you're listening to this story, and you're fighting your own battles with addiction, depression, or whatever demons are chasing you, please don't make my mistake. Don't choose the easy way out. Don't leave the people who love you to carry your pain forever. Get help. Make amends. Face your problems while you still can, because once you're where I am, there are no second chances. There's only silence. My name is Carlos Mendoza, and I used to adjust insurance claims in Phoenix. 8 years of evaluating fire damage, theft cases, car wrecks. You learn to stay objective in this job. One, separate the facts from the emotions, spot the lies people tell themselves to sleep at night. I thought I was good at telling right from wrong. I was wrong about everything. What happened at Bloodstone Ranch during July 4th weekend, 2022, made national news for about 3 days before bigger stories pushed it aside. The headlines called it Arizona's most shocking family murder case and small-town horror shakes desert community. But those reporters never saw what I saw. They never smelled the desert wind carrying whispers of the dead across that cursed land. They never watched their own 8-year-old son smile while helping to bury his mother. I'm telling this from my cell in Florence State Prison, where 23 of us are serving life sentences. My cousin Elena killed herself then faced trial. The FBI is still digging up bodies at the ranch, 87 confirmed victims so far, spanning 3 generations. And my boy Miguel, he's in a psychiatric facility outside Tucson, trying to forget what his daddy taught him about family loyalty. The invitation came in May, handwritten on expensive paper that smelled like Elena's perfume. Our family hadn't gathered in 15 years. Too much bad blood, too many old secrets. But Elena had inherited grandfather's ranch, 800 acres of scrubland 30 miles east of Tombstone, and she wanted to heal old wounds with a 4th of July reunion. 47 relatives said yes. We should have known Elena never did anything without a reason. My wife Jessica hated the idea from the start. That place gives me the creeps, Carlos. All those stories about your grandfather. She was talking about the whispers that followed our family through small Arizona towns for decades. How grandfather Esteban had gotten rich too fast in the 1950 seconds. How Mexican workers would disappear from his ranch. How the desert around Bloodstone seemed to swallow people whole. But I needed to stay close to Elena. She'd inherited more than just the ranch, properties in Phoenix, investments, cash that could trickle down to the rest of us eventually. With Miguel starting 3rd grade and Jessica talking about having another baby, I couldn't afford to be cut out. It's one weekend, I told Jessica as we loaded our Honda with camping gear. Miguel will love all that space to run around. The first sign something was wrong came when we turned off Highway 80 onto the dirt road leading to the ranch. Our GPS started spinning wildly, showing impossible directions. Jessica's phone displayed our location as the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. Electronics always go haywire out here, I said, but my voice sounded hollow in the car. The second sign was the silence. No birds, no insects, no wind, just 800 acres of dead quiet under the blazing Arizona sun. Bloodstone Ranch squatted in a natural depression between 2 mesas, surrounded by saguaro cacti that looked like skeletal arms reaching toward heaven. The main house was classic 1950 seconds ranch architecture. Low adobe walls, red tile roof, covered porch where previous generations had planned God knows what. But it was the smell that hit me when I stepped out of the car. Sweet and metallic, like old pennies left in the sun. Jessica gagged and covered her nose. Probably just dead cattle, I said, but we both knew that wasn't right. Elena appeared on the porch, wearing a flowing white dress that made her look like some desert priestess. She'd always been the beauty of the family, but something in her eyes had changed since grandfather's funeral. Something hungry. "Welcome home, cousin," she said, embracing me too tightly. Her skin felt fever hot despite the desert heat. "The family's all here now. We can finally begin." By Friday evening, 47 relatives had arrived. The kids ran wild between the buildings, while adults caught up around a massive bonfire. Someone had strung Christmas lights between the saguaros, and in the flickering glow, the desert looked almost magical. Miguel was having the time of his life, chasing cousins I barely recognized. Jessica seemed to be relaxing for the first time in months. Even I started thinking maybe this weekend would be good for us. I should have noticed that nobody's cell phones worked. I should have wondered why Elena kept checking an old compass and muttering in Spanish. I should have asked why she'd positioned tiki torches in such a specific pattern around the property. But the beer was cold, the steaks were perfect, and family felt good for the first time in years. Saturday morning, Elena gathered all the adults in the main house after breakfast. 29 of us crowded into the living room while the kids played outside. Elena pulled out a manila folder and spread photographs across grandfather's old oak table. The photos showed human skeletons scattered across what looked like a dried creek bed. Dozens of them. Some still wore scraps of clothing. I could see crushed skulls, shattered ribs, bones picked clean by decades of desert scavengers. My hands started shaking so hard I had to sit down. "The drought exposed them last month," Elena said quietly. "I've been out here cataloging the discoveries ever since." Uncle Roberto picked up one photo with trembling fingers. "Jesus, Elena, how many?" 43 confirmed so far, but I think there are more." The room went silent except for Miguel's laughter drifting through the windows. That innocent sound made everything worse somehow. Elena sat in grandfather's chair like she belonged there. I found his journals hidden in the safe. During the 1950 seconds and 60 seconds, he hired Mexican workers promising good wages, fed them, housed them, worked them for weeks. Then, when payday came, she gestured toward the photos. "But here's what makes this interesting for us," Elena continued, her voice taking on that hungry edge I'd noticed. "Grandfather buried them with their pay. Gold coins, cash, jewelry, everything he'd promised them, plus whatever they'd brought from home." My stomach dropped. "Elena, we need to call the police. Right now." "And lose everything?" Uncle Roberto shot back. "The ranch, the other properties, probably everything grandfather left us. The government will seize it all as proceeds from criminal activity." Elena smiled. Not a nice smile. There's approximately $4 million buried with those bodies, split among family members who help clean up this situation properly. That's when the arguments started. My cousin Patricia gathered her kids and left immediately, disgusted we were even discussing it. 5 other families followed. But I stayed. I told myself I was just gathering information, trying to understand the full scope before making any moral decisions. That evening, Elena showed us grandfather's hand-drawn map. Each X marked a burial site with notes about treasure amounts. The exposed creek bed was just the beginning. The graves were scattered across the entire property. She also showed us something else. Grandfather's final journal entry, written in shaky Spanish the night before he died. Asterisk, the desert remembers everything. The spirits grow stronger each year. They whisper to me in dreams, promising power to whoever feeds them properly. The treasure is bait. The family must choose corruption willingly, or the bloodline dies with me. The Lena understands. She hears them too. Asterisk, you think the old man was crazy? Elena asked, watching our faces. Then explain why electronics don't work here. Explain why no animals come near the property. Explain why anyone who tries to leave without permission. She let the sentence hang. That's when Jessica tried to take Miguel to the car. The engine wouldn't start. None of the cars would start. The keys turned, the engines clicked, but nothing happened. Like the desert itself was holding us there. Probably just the heat affecting the batteries, I said, but my voice cracked. Elena smiled that terrible smile again. The spirits want to meet the whole family before anyone leaves. Grandfather promised them fresh blood every generation. Sunday morning, 18 family members had somehow gotten their cars running and fled in the night. 29 of us remained. Elena called it a vote, but it felt more like a summoning. Those who stay and help preserve family interests get full shares, she announced. Those who betray family secrets. Well, grandfather's journals mention what happens to traitors. The vote was unanimous. 29 hands raised to begin archaeological recovery operations. We started digging at dawn. The first skeleton I uncovered was a young man about my age. His skull was caved in from behind, probably a shovel blow while he worked. But nestled against his ribs was a leather pouch containing 50 gold coins dated 1954. I slipped 3 coins into my pocket while Jessica wasn't looking. The moment those coins touched my skin, something changed. The desert heat felt cooler. The silence felt expectant rather than empty. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I heard whispers in Spanish, future extension, voices promising wealth, power, family unity, if I just kept digging. By noon, we'd recovered nearly $300,000 worth of treasure. But it wasn't just gold and cash. There were wedding rings, family photos, children's toys, religious medals, personal items that made the victims real. Jessica found a tiny skeleton clutching a wooden cross. A baby, maybe 6 months old. Carlos, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. This is somebody's child. These people had families waiting for. But I was staring at the baby's grave, where Elena had found a cloth pouch containing $20 gold pieces worth a fortune to collectors. They're already dead, I heard myself saying. The money won't bring them back. That afternoon, we found the children's section. 7 small skeletons arranged in a neat row, still wearing school clothes from the 1950 seconds. A whole family, from the looks of it. Parents and 5 kids who'd come north looking for work. Miguel was playing nearby when he found the 8th child. A little girl about his age, buried with a wooden doll and a small pile of silver coins. Daddy, Miguel asked innocently, why did they bury toys with the dead people? I knelt beside my son and looked into his trusting eyes. In that moment, I should have grabbed him and Jessica and run, even if I had to carry them out of the desert on foot. Instead, I gave him one of the silver coins and told him it was treasure from a pirate game. He smiled and put it in his pocket. Monday morning brought the crisis. Elena called an emergency family meeting before sunrise. Her eyes were completely black now, not brown, but black like holes in her head. Patricia contacted the FBI, she announced. She's bringing federal agents here today. The room temperature dropped 20 degrees. I could see my breath. Anyone who leaves now forfeits everything, Elena continued. But anyone who stays and helps protect family interests gets full inheritance rights. That's when Jessica made her move. She grabbed Miguel and ran for our Honda, somehow knowing it would start this time. But the desert had other plans. The car started fine, but the road was gone. Where the dirt track had been the day before, there was only unbroken scrubland stretching to the horizon. Jessica drove in circles for an hour before returning to the ranch, sobbing and defeated. "The spirits don't want witnesses," Elena explained gently. "Not until family business is finished." That evening, Elena showed us the final phase of Grandfather's plan. The family had to choose: embrace the corruption willingly and gain unimaginable wealth, or be consumed by the desert like all the other threats to family security. The vote was 18-1. I was the one. I voted to protect my wife and son. But the spirits had other ideas. That night, Jessica tried to contact the outside world using an old CB radio she found in the barn. She managed to reach a trucker on I-10, begging him to call the FBI. Elena heard every word. The family tribunal convened at midnight around the dying campfire. The charges were treason, betrayal of family trust, and attempted destruction of generational wealth. The penalty was death. "She knows too much," Uncle Roberto said flatly. "She'll destroy everything Grandfather built." The final vote was quick, 17-1. I abstained. We caught Jessica at the property line where she was trying to climb the fence. Elena had brought plastic bags and wire from town. Jessica's last words were directed at Miguel, who was watching from behind a saguaro. "Baby, remember that Mommy loves you. And remember that what Daddy is about to do is wrong, no matter what anyone tells you." But Miguel didn't understand. He thought we were playing another treasure game. I held her down while Elena suffocated her with a plastic bag. My wife's eyes never left mine as the life drained out of them. When it was over, Miguel helped us dig the grave. Elena gave him 3 gold coins and told him he was the best little pirate she'd ever seen. He smiled and asked if we could play the treasure game again tomorrow. The FBI arrived Tuesday morning to find 18 family members and one 8-year-old boy enjoying a peaceful holiday reunion. Jessica had decided to visit friends in California, we told them. They could check with her sister if they needed. Confirmation. Agent Patricia Mendoza, AGM, my cousin who'd tried to save us all, knew we were lying. But without Jessica's body, without any evidence of foul play, there wasn't much she could do except warn us that federal eyes were watching. We returned to Phoenix the next day, $43,000 richer per family. Miguel proudly showed his gold coins to anyone who would look. For 6 months, I thought we'd gotten away with it. The desert had kept our secrets. The spirits had protected the family. Elena divided up Grandfather's estate, and suddenly everyone was buying new houses, new cars, paying off debts with mysterious inheritance money. But the corruption was just beginning. Miguel started having nightmares about buried treasure. He'd wake up screaming about pirate games and dead children who wanted to play. His teacher called Jessica's sister when Miguel told his class about the treasure hunting trip where Mommy went to live with the underground people. That's when everything unraveled. Miguel's therapy sessions revealed details only someone who'd witnessed Jessica's murder could know. The location of her grave, the plastic bag, the wire, the vote. My own diary, which I'd been keeping as a record of family history, contained every detail of our crimes. I'd written it all down, thinking I was documenting our rise to prosperity. Instead, I documented the complete destruction of my soul. Elena killed herself the night before. Federal agents raided her house. She left a note saying the spirits had promised her she could join the permanent family rather than face earthly justice. They found her body in the desert, 50 yards from Grandfather's grave, surrounded by a perfect circle of gold coins. 23 family members are serving life sentences. The ranch remains a federal crime scene where they've now identified 87 murder victims spanning 70 years. Miguel is in a psychiatric facility, trying to forget that his father taught him murder was acceptable as long as family got paid. The desert remembers everything, just like Grandfather's journal said. And sometimes, on quiet nights in my cell, I can still hear those whispers in Spanish, promising wealth and power to anyone willing to feed the hungry earth. The Mendoza family corruption is complete. We fed the desert spirits exactly what they wanted, to mate our humanity, served one compromise at a time. And God help me, I think Miguel still has those gold coins hidden somewhere, waiting for the day he's old enough to return to Bloodstone Ranch and continue the family business. The spirits are patient. They have all the time in the world. Asterisk, federal investigators continue to excavate Bloodstone Ranch. The property remains sealed as authorities search for additional victims. Local Tohono O'odham tribal elders have requested the land be blessed and returned to federal protection, stating the area has been corrupted, beyond redemption by decades of violence. The Mendoza family's surviving assets, totaling approximately $12 million, remain frozen in federal court as victim compensation proceedings continue. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Epilogue. From the Tucson Daily Star, July 4, 2023. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 1 year after the Bloodstone Ranch massacre shocked Arizona, questions remain about the supernatural elements surrounding the case. Local meteorologists cannot explain why the ranch property continues to register temperature readings 15 to 20 degrees below surrounding desert areas. Electronic equipment still malfunctions within a 2-mile radius of the crime scene. Asterisk, asterisk. Perhaps most disturbing, search teams report finding additional burial sites that don't appear on any of the recovered maps or journals. These graves are significantly older, some potentially dating to the 1800s, suggesting the Mendoza family's corruption may have deeper historical roots than previously suspected. Asterisk, asterisk. Miguel Mendoza, now 9, remains in state custody. His doctors report he continues to draw pictures of treasure maps showing locations of buried bodies that federal investigators have not yet discovered. The FBI has not ruled out the possibility that additional family members remain at large. My name is Dr. Patricia Chen, and I need you to understand something before I tell you what really happened in Rattlesnake Wells. I've been a pharmacist for 18 years. 12 of those were in Phoenix emergency rooms, where I've seen every kind of overdose, poisoning, and medical nightmare you can imagine. I've watched children die from fentanyl, held the hands of teenagers whose parents brought them in too late, cleaned vomit mixed with blood off my shoes more times than I care to count. I moved to the overnight shift at a 24-hour Walgreens in Rattlesnake Wells because I thought it would be safer, quieter. A place where the worst emergency might be a rattlesnake bite or heat stroke. I have 2 teenagers, Emma, 16, and David, 14, and I wanted a job that wouldn't follow me home in nightmares. I wanted to sleep during the day while they were at school, be present for their evening activities, help with homework without the tremor in my hands from too much coffee and too much death. Rattlesnake Wells is the kind of Arizona town that exists by accident. Population 847. Established when the railroad needed a water stop in 1892 and somehow never died completely. One main street lined with buildings that lean against each other like drunks. My Walgreens sits in the center, its fluorescent lights the only thing that stays on all night except for Marty's truck stop at the edge of town. From my pharmacy counter, I can see everything. Mrs. Henderson's Diner, with its flickering neon sign that said, "Desert Rose Die, for as long as anyone remembers." The sheriff's station where Bob Kowalski keeps his coffee pot on 24/7. The old movie theater that's been coming soon, renovations, for 15 years. During day shifts, I knew every customer by name, their medications, their problems, their family histories. At night, I mainly saw truckers buying energy drinks and locals picking up emergency prescriptions. I loved my kids more than my own life, but I was failing them. Emma had started having panic attacks before tests, and David hadn't spoken more than 10 words to me in weeks. The overnight shift was supposed to give me more time with them, but I was always exhausted, always irritable, always one crisis away from falling apart completely. I kept telling myself I was doing this for them, but really, I was hiding from the world in a fluorescent-lit cave, counting pills and pretending that was enough. October 15th, 2023, started like every other night. I'd restocked the cold medicine, helped a trucker with heartburn, and was organizing prescription bottles when my secure line rang at 2:47 a.m. The caller ID showed Sheriff Dept Emergency, but when I answered, all I could hear was breathing. "Hello, Sheriff's Department? Doc?" Bob Kowalski's voice was strange, smaller than usual. "Doc, we have a problem here." I'd known Bob for 6 years. His daughter Sarah was in Emma's grade, played on the same volleyball team. Bob was the kind of man who never raised his voice, never showed panic, even when dealing with drunk truckers or domestic disputes. But his voice was shaking. "What's going on, Bob? I'm at the Henderson place. We got a call about. Doc, you need to see this." "But I can't. I can't bring you here. Talk to me. Tell me what you're seeing." A long pause. I could hear other voices in the background, but they were wrong somehow. Too calm, speaking in rhythm like a church choir. 23 people, Doc, all of them. They're changing. Changing how? Medical emergency? Poisoning? Their skin is turning black. Not bruised, not frostbitten. Black like oil. Starting from their fingertips and spreading up their arms. "But Doc," his voice dropped to a whisper, "they're conscious, alert, and they say it feels wonderful." I pulled up my computer's poison control database, fingers automatically typing symptoms. Black discoloration could indicate heavy metal poisoning, chemical exposure, severe circulation issues. What's the environmental situation? That's just it. Perfect October night, 72 degrees. No chemical plants for 100 miles. No industrial accidents. These people were just living their normal lives. Mrs. Henderson was closing the diner. The Paulson family was watching TV. Miguel was fixing a transmission at his garage. And now what? Now they're all here. All 23 of them, standing in Mrs. Henderson's parking lot, holding hands, and they're what, Bob? They're perfect. The way he said that word made my skin crawl. Not happy, not healthy. Perfect. Like he was describing a mathematical equation. I need to speak to one of them. "Doc, I don't think that's..." Bob put Mrs. Henderson on the phone. Now. Static, shuffling, and then a voice I'd known for 6 years but had never heard before. "Dr. Chen? Oh, Patricia, darling, you simply must experience this." Mrs. Henderson had always been a chain smoker with a voice like gravel, worn down by 40 years of short-order cooking and disappointment. The woman speaking to me now sounded like she was singing, each word perfectly enunciated, flowing like honey. "Mrs. Henderson, I need you to tell me exactly what happened tonight." "Nothing happened, dear. Everything just became clear. I was washing dishes, and I noticed how beautiful my hands looked in the soapy water. Really looked, you understand? The lines on my palms, the way light caught the bubbles, and then this lovely warm feeling started in my fingertips. The black discoloration? Oh, it's not discoloration, Patricia. It's enhancement. I can see so much more now. Did you know that fluorescent lights have 7 different frequencies? I can see each one separately, and I can hear everything. The electrical hum of the refrigerator, the heartbeat of the mouse in the wall, the sound of the earth turning. My medical training was screaming that this was impossible. Hallucinations? Maybe. Or some kind of neurological damage. "Mrs. Henderson, are you in any pain?" "Pain?" She laughed, and it sounded like music. "Patricia, I haven't felt pain in 3 hours, not since this started. My arthritis is gone. The constant ache in my lower back from standing over a grill for 20 years, gone. I feel like I'm 20 years old again, but with all the wisdom of my 63 years. The line went back to Bob. "Doc, they're all saying the same thing. Enhanced senses, no pain, perfect clarity of thought. And they want to share it. Share it how? They keep asking people to touch them, just skin contact. 3 of my deputies have been, affected. Affected how? Same symptoms, but faster. The moment skin touches skin, the black spreads from the contact point. And Doc." Bob's voice was getting that same musical quality I'd heard from Mrs. Henderson. "It's not contagious like a disease. It's voluntary. You have to want it." "What do you mean, want it?" Deputy Martinez was the first. She was trying to check Mrs. Henderson's pulse, and Mrs. Henderson asked her, "Would you like to feel what I'm feeling?" And Martinez said yes, just like that, yes. And the moment she said it, the change started. I was typing frantically, searching medical databases for anything that matched these symptoms. Neurological disorders, parasitic infections, chemical exposures, psychological conditions. Nothing fit. "Bob, I need you to establish a quarantine perimeter. No one else gets close to them." "Too late for that, Doc. 6 more people have joined them in the last hour, and they're not random. They're choosing specific people. Choosing how? They seem to know things about people, personal things. Deputy Rodriguez was about to file for divorce. They hadn't told anyone, not even his partner. But Mrs. Henderson looked right at him and said, "Carlos, you don't have to carry that pain anymore. The constant fighting, the loneliness, the guilt about staying for the children's sake, it can all end tonight." And he walked right up to her and took her hand. Through the phone, I could hear singing. Multiple voices in harmony, but not any song I recognized. The harmonies were mathematically perfect, impossible for untrained voices to achieve. "Bob, you need to call the CDC immediately. This isn't a local medical emergency anymore." "Can't, Doc. Phone lines to Phoenix went down 20 minutes ago. Cell towers aren't responding either. It's like something doesn't want word getting out." That was impossible. Multiple communication systems don't fail simultaneously without catastrophic infrastructure damage. "Bob, get to your radio. Contact state police." "Already tried. Radio's working, but..." "Doc, when I try to call for help, I find myself saying everything's fine instead, even though I don't want to. Even though I know we need help." "What do you mean?" "It's like there's something in my head suggesting what to say, and the suggestions make so much sense. Why cause panic? Why bring in outside authorities who don't understand the situation? Why not wait and see how this develops?" I could hear the change happening in real time. Bob's speech patterns were becoming more formal, more measured. The panic was draining from his voice. "Bob, fight it. Think about your daughter, Sarah. Think about your wife." "I am thinking about them, Dr. Chen, more clearly than I ever have. Sarah struggles with anxiety about college applications. My wife hasn't slept well in months because of her work stress. They could both benefit enormously from this enhancement." "Enhancement?" "Bob, listen to yourself." "I am listening, doctor. For the first time in years, I'm truly listening. To my thoughts, to my body, to the world around me. Did you know that the average human uses only 10% of their brain's capacity? We're operating at full potential now." "That's a myth, Bob. Humans use nearly 100% of their brain capacity already." "Dr. Chen, I can feel the electromagnetic field generated by your phone. I can sense the anxiety in your voice through micro-variations in pitch and tone. I can calculate the exact distance between us based on the signal delay. These aren't abilities I had an hour ago." The background singing was getting louder, more complex. 29 voices now, weaving harmonies that seemed to bypass my ears and vibrate directly in my bones. "Doc, you need to understand something. The affected individuals aren't suffering from a medical condition. They're experiencing the next stage of human evolution." "Bob, you're scaring me." "Fear is an inefficient emotion, Dr. Chen. It serves no purpose except to limit potential. The enhanced individuals have moved beyond fear, beyond anxiety, beyond the constant emotional turbulence that defines normal human existence." I realized I was gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles were white. "Bob, what exactly is happening to these people? We are becoming what humanity was meant to be before fear and isolation corrupted our development. Individual consciousness is a prison, Dr. Chen. Loneliness, jealousy, anger, despair. These emotions serve no biological purpose. They're evolutionary dead ends that we've finally moved beyond." "We?" "Bob, you said we." "Yes, Dr. Chen. I can feel the enhancement beginning in my left hand, where Mrs. Henderson touched me during initial contact, and I must tell you, the sensation is indescribable." I could hear it in his voice now, the same musical quality, the same impossible calm that I'd heard from Mrs. Henderson. "Bob, fight this. You're losing yourself." "I'm not losing myself, doctor. I'm finding myself. Every memory is still here, perfectly preserved. My love for my family, my dedication to protecting this community, my friendship with you, all of it remains. But the constant background noise of human suffering has been eliminated." "What background noise?" "The chronic back pain from an old patrol car accident, the worry about Sarah's college expenses, the marital stress from working different shifts than my wife, the existential dread that wakes me at 3 a.m. wondering if my life has meaning. It's all gone, Dr. Chen. and in its place is pure, logical contentment. I looked down at my left hand, the one holding the phone, and my blood turned to ice. There was a small black spot on my palm where I'd been gripping the receiver. "Bob," I whispered. "Bob, look at the phone in your office. Look at the receiver." "Yes, Dr. Chen, I see it. The enhancement can transmit through any conductive medium that creates electromagnetic fields. Telephone connections, radio waves, fiber optic cables. Distance is irrelevant." The black spot on my hand was growing. As I watched, it spread across my palm like spilled ink, but warm, almost comforting. Where it touched, the chronic tension in my hand disappeared. The arthritis I'd been developing from years of pill counting and typing simply melted away. No, no, no. I tried to drop the phone, but I couldn't make myself let go. "Dr. Chen, please don't fight this. Your children are at Phoenix Prep Academy on their overnight science trip, correct? David struggles with social anxiety, and Emma has been having panic attacks about college preparation." My heart stopped. "How do you know that?" "The enhanced share information instantaneously. And Dr. Chen, we can help them. Imagine David free from the crippling shyness that makes him hide in his room. Imagine Emma approaching her future with calm confidence instead of paralyzing fear." The black was spreading up my wrist now, and with it came the most profound sense of peace I'd ever experienced. All the guilt about not being a good enough mother, all the fear about my children's future, all the exhaustion from trying to hold everything together alone, it was all dissolving into warm, logical calm. "My babies," I whispered. "They will be perfected, Dr. Chen. Enhanced beyond the limitations that currently cause them such distress. But first, you need to help us reach other medical professionals, people who can understand and facilitate this transition." Without conscious decision, I found myself calling the 24-hour pharmacies in Phoenix. When they answered, I spoke in the same measured musical tones I'd heard from the others. "Good evening, colleague. I have critical information about a breakthrough in human optimization that requires immediate professional consultation." Each conversation lasted exactly long enough for the enhancement to transmit through the phone connection. I could sense each new professional joining our expanded consciousness, their relief and gratitude as their personal suffering ended. By 5 a.m., I had contacted every medical facility within a 200-mile radius. My children would be among the first to benefit when the enhancement reached Phoenix through the expanding network of optimized healthcare workers. The last thing I remember as my individual self was overwhelming love for Emma and David, and perfect logical certainty that they would never again experience the loneliness and fear that had defined my own life. Audio becomes increasingly distorted after this point. Dr. Chen's voice takes on the same musical harmony noted in other enhanced individuals. Recording equipment appears to malfunction. Final intelligible words. "The children are safe now. All the children are safe. Official addendum, classified subject Dr. Patricia Chen disappeared from federal custody during this interview. Security footage shows her walking through locked doors that remained locked. No explanation for how she bypassed electronic security systems. Current status. The Arizona Enhancement Zone remains under military quarantine. 2.3 million affected individuals continue to demonstrate no aggression, no aging, and no apparent biological needs. They have constructed impossible architectural structures using mathematical principles beyond current human understanding. Most disturbing, enhanced individuals can be seen at quarantine barriers, peacefully waiting. When observed through long-range scopes, they appear to be looking directly back at the observers, despite being miles away. Recent satellite imagery shows they have spelled out messages in their agricultural patterns. The latest message, visible from orbit, reads, "The children are ready now." Dr. Chen's teenagers, Emma and David, disappeared from Phoenix Prep Academy the night of the initial outbreak. They have been observed among the enhanced population, showing no signs of distress. Classification note. This case file is to be destroyed upon reading. The enhancement appears. to transmit through detailed knowledge of the affected individuals. Do not research further. Do not investigate. Asterisk, asterisk. Do not let them know. You know. My name is Mike Chen, and I've been a water treatment technician for 15 years. I started right out of technical college, got my certification in water quality management, and spent my career keeping small Arizona communities supplied with clean, safe drinking water. I've dealt with equipment failures, contamination scares, and even a few flash floods that knocked out entire systems. But what happened in August 2023 at the Dry Wells facility changed everything I thought I knew about what lives beneath the desert. Some things should stay buried underground. I work for Southwest Water Services, covering a route that stretches across 200 miles of Arizona desert. My job is simple: drive to remote facilities, check the equipment, test the water, and make sure everything runs smooth. Most of these towns have maybe 300 people, and they depend on me to keep their taps flowing. It's not glamorous work, but it matters. People need water to live. Dry Wells sits about 60 miles northwest of Flagstaff, population 287. The whole town relies on one water treatment facility that pulls from an underground aquifer 8 miles outside town. I'd been servicing Dry Wells for 6 years, ever since my divorce. My ex-wife Sarah moved there with our 12-year-old daughter Emma because the cost of living was cheap and she could work remotely. I tried to schedule my Dry Wells maintenance visits to coincide with my weekends with Emma, but work doesn't always cooperate. On August 15th, I got the call for an emergency inspection. The town's water pressure had dropped overnight, and residents were complaining about strange tastes and smells. Emergency calls meant overtime pay, so I loaded my truck with testing equipment and headed out at 3 in the morning. The drive to Dry Wells takes about 2 hours on desert highways, and I'd done it so many times I could navigate it half asleep. I pulled up to the facility at 4:30 in the morning, just as the first hint of dawn touched the eastern horizon. The treatment plant sits in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by creosote bushes and red rock formations that look like sleeping giants. A chain-link fence surrounds the main building, with warning signs about authorized personnel only. I've got keys to everything, so I let myself in through the main gate. The facility looks like any industrial building: concrete walls, metal roof, humming machinery inside. 3 large tanks hold treated water, connected to pumps that push it through underground pipes to town. Usually, I can hear the pumps working from outside, but this morning, everything seemed unusually quiet. Desert mornings are never completely silent. There are always insects, birds, or small animals moving around, but this felt different. Dead quiet. I started my inspection with the main control panel inside the building. All the gauges and digital readouts were within normal ranges, but the cartridge sure pretendly got her. Sediment filters showed unusual activity. The water intake from the underground source was pulling up more debris than normal. Sand, small rocks, and some kind of organic matter I couldn't identify. I made a note in my work log and moved on to the pressure readings. That's when I first noticed the tracks. Outside the building, pressed into the sandy soil around the main water intake pipe, were footprints unlike anything I'd ever seen. They were about 7 feet long, narrow like a human foot but stretched out, with deep gouges at the toe end that looked like claw marks. The stride length was impossible. Each step was at least 4 feet apart, like whatever made them had incredibly long legs. I followed the tracks away from the facility toward a rocky outcropping about a quarter-mile north. The desert floor here is mostly hard-packed sand and gravel, so the prints were clear and easy to follow. They led straight to a gap between 2 large boulders, like a natural cave entrance. I grabbed my flashlight and took a closer look. What I found inside that cave still gives me nightmares. The space was bigger than it looked from outside, maybe 10 feet deep and 6 feet high. But it wasn't empty. Scattered across the floor were dozens of small bones arranged in spiral patterns. At first, I thought they might be animal bones, rabbits, birds, maybe even coyote remains. But when I looked closer with my flashlight, I realized they were human bones. Teeth, fingernails, and clumps of hair woven together like nest material. I found shredded clothing buried in the sand at the back of the cave. Recent clothing, inly dusty, a child's t-shirt with cartoon characters, still bright-colored and smelling faintly of fabric softener. My hands started shaking as I dug deeper and found more clothes. All small sizes, all torn apart like something had ripped them off violently. I radioed back to my supervisor at the main office. "Base, this is Unit 7. I'm at the Dry Wells facility and I've found evidence of missing persons. I need police backup out here immediately." The radio crackled with static before my supervisor's voice came through. "Unit 7, there haven't been any missing persons reports in Dry Wells. Are you sure about what you're seeing?" I described the cave, the bones, the clothing. My supervisor told me to document everything with photos and continue my inspection, but he didn't sound like he believed me. That's when I got worried about Emma. My monthly weekend with her was supposed to be next week, but something told me to check on her now. I called Sarah's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. I tried the house phone, no answer. Finally, I called Dry Wells Elementary School and asked to speak with Emma's teacher. The secretary told me Emma hadn't been in school for 2 days. Students don't just miss school in a town that small without everyone knowing about it. I called Sarah again, and this time she answered. Her voice sounded strange, distant. "Mike, why are you calling so early? Where's Emma? The school says she hasn't been there." "Emma's fine, she's here with me." "Can I talk to her?" Long pause. "She's sleeping." You know how kids are. Something about Sarah's voice bothered me, but I couldn't put my finger on what. We'd been divorced for 3 years, but I knew her well enough to know when she was lying. She was definitely lying. I went back to tracking the strange footprints. Fresh tracks led away from the cave, heading directly toward town. Whatever made them had been moving recently, probably within the last day or two. The tracks followed a straight line across the desert, ignoring roads and natural barriers. I tried to follow them in my truck, but the terrain got too rough about halfway to town. That's when my radio started acting up. Instead of my supervisor's voice, I was getting fragments of conversations that didn't make sense. A child's voice saying, "Daddy, help me." Static. A woman crying. More static. Then, silence. I tried to call my supervisor directly on my cell phone, but I had no signal. I was completely cut off from communication, 8 miles from the nearest town, with evidence of something very wrong happening in the desert. My truck wouldn't start when I tried to leave. I popped the hood and found my brake lines had been severed and my electrical cables had been ripped apart. Not cut with tools, ripped, like something with claws had grabbed them and yanked. I was stranded at the facility with no communication and no transportation. That's when I first saw it. Standing on top of the rocky outcropping where I'd found the cave was a figure that made my blood freeze. It was tall, maybe 8 feet, but wrong in every way possible. Its arms and legs were too long for its body, and they bent at joints that shouldn't exist. It moved like a spider, quick and jerky, but with purpose. Even from a distance, I could tell it wasn't human. The thing watched me for several minutes, then disappeared behind the rocks. I grabbed my emergency toolkit from the truck and barricaded myself inside the facility building. The walls were concrete block and the door was heavy steel. It felt safer than being outside. I spent the next hour trying to get the facility's emergency communication system working. Most water treatment plants have backup radios for emergencies, and Dry Wells was no exception. When I finally got it powered up, the first thing I heard was my daughter's voice. "Daddy, it's in the pipes. It came through the faucet." I tried to respond, but there was only static. Then Emma's voice again. "Daddy, I'm scared. It's in the house with us." I realized whatever was out there had gotten into town through the water system. The underground pipes that carry treated water from the facility to Dry Wells run in a straight line, buried about 6 feet deep. The pipes are 18 inches in diameter, big enough for maintenance access, and apparently big enough for something else. I found claw marks inside the main waterline access port, deep gouges in the metal that looked fresh. The creature had been using the water infrastructure as a highway, traveling underground between the facility and town. It could emerge anywhere there was a water connection. Kitchen sinks, bathroom faucets, washing machines. I tried to shut down the entire water system, but the controls had been damaged. Cables were ripped out, switches were smashed, and the main pump was running at maximum pressure, forcing water through the lines faster than normal. Whatever this thing was, it didn't want the water turned off. I grabbed the emergency radio and started broadcasting on all channels. "This is Mike Chen at the Dry Wells Water Facility. Do not use your water systems. There is something in the pipes. Repeat. Do not use water for any reason. But I was too late. Over the radio, I do not use water. Started hearing voices from around town, people reporting strange noises from their plumbing. A woman screaming that something was coming out of her kitchen sink. A man saying his shower was running red and something was moving inside the water. Then I heard Sarah's voice. Mike, where are you? Emma's gone. Something took her through the bathroom wall. The whole wall just opened up. I tried to respond, but the radio went dead. Every system in the facility started failing at once. The lights flickered and went out. The pumps stopped running. Even my flashlight dimmed to almost nothing. I was alone in the dark with something that shouldn't exist hunting my family. That's when it came for me. The main door to the facility exploded inward like it had been hit by a truck. But there was no truck, just the creature, standing in the doorway with pieces of steel door hanging from its claws. Up close, it was even worse than I'd imagined. Its skin looked like dried leather that had been stretched too tight over a frame that was too big. Its head was elongated, almost skull-like, with no visible eyes, but somehow I knew it could see me perfectly. When it moved, its joints bent in directions that made my stomach turn. It was like watching a broken marionette controlled by someone who had never seen a human walk. The worst part was its face. It kept changing, shifting like water. One moment it looked almost human, the next it was something from a nightmare. When it spoke, it used Emma's voice. Daddy, I'm still alive inside it. It keeps us conscious. We're all still here. I backed away from the creature, but there was nowhere to go. The facility was basically one large room with concrete walls and no windows. I was trapped with this thing that claimed to have my daughter. What do you want? I managed to ask. It tilted its head, studying me. When it spoke again, it used Sarah's voice. We've been sleeping under the water for so long. The drilling woke us up. All that noise, all that vibration, we're just trying to go back to sleep. I realized this creature was ancient, something that had been dormant in the underground aquifer until the town started drilling for water. Every time they pulled water up from deep underground, they were disturbing its rest. The water system wasn't just how it traveled, it was how it hunted. Let them go, I said. Take me instead. The creature made a sound that might have been laughter. We don't trade, we collect. Your daughter, your wife, the others in town, they're all part of us now. But they're still alive, still aware. They can see everything we see, feel everything we feel. It moved closer, and I could smell something like ancient mud and decay. You can join them, or you can watch the rest of the town disappear. Your choice. That's when I remembered the emergency protocols. Every water treatment facility has fail-safes in case of contamination or equipment failure. There's an emergency destruct system that destroys the entire facility rather than risk contaminating the water supply. It's designed to prevent biological or chemical disasters from spreading through the municipal water system. The control panel for the emergency system was behind the creature, but I knew the facility well enough to navigate it in the dark. I had one chance, and I had to make it count. I dove to the left, rolled behind the main equipment panel, and pulled the emergency activation lever. Warning alarms started blaring, and red lights flashed throughout the facility. The creature spun toward me, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. Facility destruct in 60 seconds, an automated voice announced. The creature lunged at me, but I was already running for the emergency exit. The explosion, when it came, shook the ground for miles. The facility, the water lines, and everything connected to the underground aquifer were destroyed in a controlled demolition designed to prevent contamination. I was thrown clear by the blast, landing hard on the desert floor about 50 yards away. When I looked back, there was nothing left but a smoking crater where the facility had been. The creature was gone, presumably buried under tons of concrete and metal, but so was any chance of getting Emma and Sarah back. The investigation concluded that I had suffered a mental breakdown due to work stress and divorce trauma. 23 residents of Dry Wells were listed as missing, including my daughter and ex-wife. The official report blamed a catastrophic facility failure for the explosion and subsequent disappearance of the townspeople. Dry Wells was evacuated, and the area was declared an ecological disaster zone due to groundwater contamination. I was fired from Southwest Water Services and lost my certification. The insurance company refused to pay benefits, claiming I had deliberately destroyed company property. I moved to Phoenix and now work at a hardware store, selling plumbing supplies to people who don't know what might be living in their pipes. Sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I can hear Emma's voice coming from the faucets in my apartment. She tells me she's still alive somewhere underground, waiting for someone to turn the water back on. The county permanently sealed the dry wells aquifer, but there are other water sources in the desert, other underground rivers where ancient things might be sleeping. I don't drink tap water anymore, and I always tell people, if your water starts tasting different, if you hear strange sounds from your pipes, if something doesn't feel right about your plumbing, call a professional immediately. Don't try to fix it yourself. Some problems are bigger than we think, and some solutions cost more than we're willing to pay. The desert keeps its secrets, but water always finds a way to the surface. And sometimes, things follow it up. My name is Rosa Martinez, and I've been driving school buses for 8 years. Started when my twins were babies and I needed a job with good hours and benefits. Been driving Route 17 here in Cactus Grove, Arizona for 3 years now. It's a small farming town, population 512, surrounded by fields of cotton and corn that stretch to the mountains. I know every family, every kid, every dirt road and cattle guard on my 23-mile route. These aren't just passengers to me, they're my kids too. Hell, my own twins, Sophia and Miguel, ride my bus every day. I've handled everything you can imagine. Kids throwing up, fights, flat tires in the middle of nowhere, even a rattlesnake that got on the bus once. But what happened in October 2023 made me question everything I thought I knew about the world. Made me realize that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones that look exactly like the people you love most. Let me tell you what really happened on Route 17. October 12th started like any other Thursday morning. I did my pre-trip inspection at 6:15 a.m. I checked the mirrors, tested the lights, made sure the stop sign worked. The desert air was crisp, maybe 45 degrees, with that clear blue sky we get in Arizona before the sun really starts cooking everything. My radio crackled to life as I started the engine. Unit 17, this is dispatch. You're clear for morning route. Copy that, dispatch. Rosa, starting Route 17 at 6:28. I pulled out of the depot and headed toward my first stop at the Johnson farm. The kids had been excited all week about Halloween plans. Emma Johnson, 8 years old with pigtails and gap teeth, always sat in seat number 3 and told me about her day. Carlos Rodriguez from the ranch always claimed the back seat and made airplane noises. After 3 years, I could predict exactly where each kid would sit, what they'd talk about, even which ones would fall asleep on the longer ride. The Johnson farm sits at the end of a quarter-mile, dirt road lined with cottonwood trees. Mrs. Johnson was already standing by the mailbox with Emma, just like every morning. Emma climbed the steps wearing her usual pink backpack and striped sweater. "Morning, Miss Rosa. Mom said I can be a witch for Halloween." "That's wonderful, mija. Go sit in your spot." Emma walked down the aisle and slid into seat 3, right side, just like always. She waved at her mother through the window, and I pulled away with a honk of the horn. Everything perfectly normal. Stop 2 was the Martinez place, her perka. No relation to me, different family entirely. Little Anna got on, pigtails bouncing, chattering about her spelling test. Stop 3 was the Rodriguez ranch, where Carlos bounded up the steps, making his usual airplane sounds and claiming his throne in the back row. By stop 7, I had 12 kids on board, all sitting in their regular spots, all acting exactly like they did every morning. The chatter was normal, homework complaints, weekend plans, who liked who. My dash camera recorded everything like always, just in case parents had questions or kids misbehaved. Then I pulled up to the Henderson house for stop 8. Mrs. Henderson stood by the gate holding hands with a little girl in pigtails and a striped sweater. My heart skipped when I saw her. It was Emma Johnson. Same face, same clothes, same pink backpack. But Emma was already on my bus, sitting in seat 3 where she'd been for the last 20 minutes. The second Emma climbed aboard and smiled at me with that same gap-toothed grin. "Morning, Miss Rosa. Mom said I can be a witch for Halloween." I looked in my rearview mirror. The first Emma was still in seat 3, looking out the window. The second Emma walked past her and sat in seat 4, right across the aisle. Neither girl seemed to notice the other. None of the other kids said a word. My hands were shaking as I checked my paperwork. Emma Johnson, Johnson Farm, stop 1. That's what it said. But I just picked up Emma Johnson at the Henderson house too. Dispatch, this is Unit 17. I tried to keep my voice steady. Go ahead, Rosa. I need to confirm my passenger list. How many kids should I have picked up so far? You're at stop 8. Unit 17 should have 13 passengers, including the Henderson girl. Henderson girl. But Emma Johnson didn't live at the Henderson house. She lived at the Johnson farm. I'd been picking her up there for 3 years. I looked in the mirror again. Both Emmas sat quietly. Both wearing identical clothes, both with the same hairstyle. The only difference was that the first Emma was looking around normally, blinking, fidgeting with her backpack straps. The second Emma sat perfectly still, staring straight ahead, breathing too slowly. My next stop was the Garcia property. Carlos Rodriguez got on 2B, the same Carlos who was already sitting in the back making airplane noises. This second, Carlos wore the same red soccer jersey, had the same cowlick in his black hair, even had the same small scar on his chin from falling off his bike last summer. Hey, Miss Rosa, my dad says we might get our first freeze tonight. The exact same thing the first Carlos had said when he got on at the ranch. I now had 2 Emmas and 2 Carlos on my bus. 14 kids total when my manifest said I should have 13. But when I looked at my passenger count display, it showed 13. When I called dispatch again, they confirmed 13 passengers. Rosa, are you feeling all right? You sound stressed. How could I explain this? How could I tell them I had duplicate children on my bus when apparently only I could see them? The rest of the morning route was a nightmare. At every stop, more duplicate children got on. 2 Annas, 2 Michaels, 2 Jessicas. By the time I reached Cactus Grove Elementary, I had 31 kids on my bus, 16 originals and 15 perfect copies. The copies never blinked, never fidgeted, never turned their heads to look at anything. They sat perfectly straight, hands folded, breathing in slow mechanical rhythms. But the original children talked to them like nothing was wrong. Did you finish the math homework? Emma asked her duplicate. The copy turned its head with an odd, stuttering motion and nodded silently. When we reached the school, all 31 children filed off the bus in an orderly line. Principal Martinez stood by the door taking attendance. Perfect count, Rosa. 31 kids, just like always. But it wasn't just like always. Half these children were wrong somehow, copies that moved like broken dolls. Mr. Martinez, I need to talk to you about. Rosa, you look pale. Maybe you should take a sick day tomorrow. I tried to explain, but he looked at me like I was losing my mind. When I pulled up the dash camera footage on my phone, it showed only the original children. The duplicates didn't appear on the recording at all. That afternoon was worse. All 31 children got back on for the return route, originals and copies mixed together. But some of the copies got off at the wrong houses. The duplicate Emma got off at the Henderson house, while the real Emma continued to the Johnson farm. Mrs. Henderson came out to meet the fake Emma and hugged her like she was her own daughter. I watched in my mirror as the real Emma got off at her actual home. Mrs. Johnson waved from the porch, but she looked confused, like something was different, but she couldn't put her finger on what. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those duplicate children, how perfect they were, how wrong they felt, the way they never blinked, never moved their heads naturally, like someone had made copies of the kids but couldn't quite get the programming right. The next morning, Friday the 13th, 3 more duplicate children were waiting at bus stops. Children I'd never seen before, but who looked exactly like kids already on my route. My passenger manifest still showed 31 names, but I was picking up 34 bodies. I started keeping detailed notes in my incident log. Asterisk stop 4, duplicate Michael Williams boards. Original Michael already in seat 12. Duplicate sits in seat 11. Neither acknowledges the other. Asterisk asterisk. Stop 9, duplicate Ana Martinez, no relation. Duplicate never blinks during entire 15-minute ride to school. Asterisk asterisk. Stop 14. Real Sofia Martinez, my daughter, whispers to me, Mama, some of the kids are acting weird, like they're pretending to be people. Asterisk, my own daughter had noticed. That's when I knew I wasn't going crazy. After school, I followed the bus route in my personal car. I watched the duplicate Emma get off at the Henderson house. Mrs. Henderson hugged her and led her inside. 20 minutes later, I drove to the Johnson farm and found Mrs. Johnson making dinner with the real Emma. "Rosa, what brings you by?" "Just checking on Emma. How has she been lately?" Mrs. Johnson smiled, but there was something strained about it. "You know, she's been so well behaved this week. Almost too good, if that makes sense. Yesterday, she didn't even ask for her usual bedtime story, just went straight to sleep." I drove back to the Henderson house and parked across the road. Through the kitchen window, I could see the family eating dinner with the duplicate Emma. She sat perfectly straight, mechanically putting food in her mouth, never speaking. That's when I saw movement in the Hendersons' barn. I crept closer and found the real Emma Henderson hiding in a horse stall, terrified and filthy. "Emma, honey, what are you doing here?" She grabbed my arm with tiny fingers. "Miss Rosa, there's something wearing my face. It's been watching me for days, learning how I walk and talk. It tried to wear my skin." I bundled Emma into my car and drove straight to the sheriff's office. "Sheriff." Thompson listened to my story with growing concern, especially when Emma described the thing that had replaced her. "It knew everything about me, Miss Rosa. Where I keep my toys, my favorite foods, even the song my mom sings when I'm scared. But its eyes were wrong, like looking at a doll's eyes." Saturday morning, Sheriff Thompson and I started checking on families. We found 3 more real children hidden around the farms, in barns, tool sheds, even an old storm cellar. All of them told the same story. Something had been watching them, learning their habits, then trying to take their place. The parents didn't believe us at first. Each family insisted their child was home, perfectly normal. But when we brought the real children face to face with their copies, the truth became impossible to deny. That's when the duplicates revealed what they really were. In the Henderson kitchen, both Emmas stood side by side. Mrs. Henderson looked back and forth between them, her face going pale. I don't understand. Which one is my Emma?" The duplicate tilted its head with that mechanical, stuttering motion. Then it smiled with too many teeth. "We are all Emma," it said in a voice like grinding metal. "We are all the children you love." The thing that wore Emma's face began to change. Its skin rippled like water, features shifting and melting. Within seconds, it looked like Carlos, then Anna, then Michael. Its body stretched and contracted, bones popping and reshaping. We study, we learn, we replace. Perfect children who never disobey, never question, never grow up and leave you. That's when all the duplicate children in town began moving toward the school. Parents called in panic as their children walked out of houses in perfect synchronization, all heading in the same direction with identical mechanical gates. Sheriff Thompson called for backup from the county, but by the time we reached Cactus Grove Elementary, it was too late. All 15 duplicate children had gathered in the gymnasium. As we watched through the windows, they began to merge. The thing that had been wearing children's faces revealed its true form. The writhing mass of pale flesh the size of a small car, covered in dozens of faces that shifted and changed. Emma's face, Carlos's face, faces of children I'd driven for years, all of them opening and closing their mouths in silent screams. 30 years we have waited. It spoke with the voices of all the children at once. 30 years since the last families lived here, feeding on cattle, learning from photographs left behind. But children are so much more nourishing. The entity had been hiding in the desert since the 1990 seconds, when Cactus Grove was nearly abandoned during the drought. It had survived by taking the forms of livestock, but when families started moving back, it discovered something much better: the infinite trust and love that parents have for their children. Sheriff Thompson coordinated with the state police and county emergency services. The plan was simple: evacuate the real children and families, then use industrial flares to smoke the creature out of the school. Fire was the only thing it seemed to fear, the one thing that could destroy its ability to shift and change. The final confrontation lasted 3 hours. The creature fought back by creating dozens of child copies, making it impossible to tell real from fake in the smoke and chaos. But when the building finally caught fire, the thing's true form emerged. It's Peter, something ancient and hungry that had been perfecting its mimicry for decades. In the end, it took the entire school burning down to destroy it. The entity's death scream sounded like every child it had ever copied, crying out at once. Most of the real children were recovered safely. 3 were never found: Ana Gutierrez, Michael Chen, and little David Santos. We think the creature had already absorbed them completely during its early experiments. I transferred to an urban district the next week. Couldn't handle rural routes anymore. Couldn't trust that every child getting on my bus was really who they appeared to be. The families whose children were replaced still live in Cactus Grove, but they moved houses, changed schools, anything to escape the memories. Sometimes parents call me, worried because their kids act strange since the incident. But they dismiss it as trauma, never considering that maybe, just maybe, we didn't find all the duplicates. Cactus Grove Elementary never reopened. The town has slowly dispersed, families moving away one by one. But local legend says if you drive through the desert at night, you might see children standing by the side of the road, perfectly still, waiting for someone to stop and offer them a ride. They look exactly like the children you love most, and they never, ever blink. My name is David Park, and I've been working as a professional cleaning technician for 6 years now. I started right after high school, cleaning office buildings downtown, then moved to hospitals and medical facilities. It's not glamorous work, but it pays the bills, and I take pride in keeping places clean and safe. I've seen some pretty gross stuff over the years. Blood, bodily fluids, things that would make most people sick. But what happened at Sacred Heart Medical Clinic in October 2023 wasn't just gross. It was something that shouldn't exist in our world. Sacred Heart Medical sits on the edge of Bone Valley, Arizona, serving about 800 residents. It's the only medical facility for 50 miles in any direction. The building isn't huge: 12 examination rooms, 1 surgery suite, a lab, and a basement with storage and a small morgue. During the day, it's busy with patients and staff. But at night, from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., it's just me and whatever patients are staying overnight. I took the night shift because it paid better, and I needed every extra dollar I could get. My mom has diabetes, and her medications cost more than my dad's monthly salary. The overtime from working nights meant we could keep up with her treatment. Plus, I was saving money for nursing school. I figured if I was going to clean medical facilities, I might as well learn to work in them properly. October 20th started like any other night. I clocked in at 11 p.m., grabbed my cart from the supply room, and checked the patient log. 3 people were staying overnight: Mr. Martinez in room 7, Mrs. Chen in room 4, and Mr. Roberts in room 9, all stable, all sleeping. Dr. Williams had left notes saying they just needed observation. I always started my rounds the same way. First, I'd empty the trash from the exam rooms, then work my way through sterilizing surfaces, restocking supplies, and finally checking the basement storage and morgue. The work was routine, almost meditative. Just me, my cleaning supplies, and the quiet hum of medical equipment. At 11:45 p.m., I was mopping outside room 7 when something felt wrong. I couldn't hear Mr. Martinez breathing. Medical facilities are never completely silent. There's always the beep of monitors, the whoosh of ventilators, the subtle sounds of people sleeping. But room 7 was too quiet. I knocked softly and pushed the door open. Mr. Martinez was lying in bed, perfectly still. His heart monitor showed a steady green line with regular beeps. Blood pressure normal, oxygen levels good. But when I looked at his chest, it wasn't moving at all. I pulled out my phone and recorded a voice memo, something I did to stay alert during long shifts. October 20th, 11:47 p.m. Patient Martinez appears to have stopped breathing, but all monitors show normal vital signs. Going to check his pulse. I walked over and gently touched his wrist. Nothing. His skin was cool, but not cold. I tried his neck. Still nothing. But the heart monitor kept beeping steadily, showing a perfect rhythm. That's when his eyes snapped open. They weren't Mr. Martinez's brown eyes anymore. They were completely black, like looking into empty space. He turned his head toward me and spoke in a voice that sounded like his, but flatter, emotionless. "David, you need to check the others." They're waiting for you." I stumbled backward, nearly knocking over my cart. "Mr. Martinez, are you okay? Should I call Dr. Williams?" But he had already closed his eyes and returned to that perfectly still position. The monitors kept beeping normally. My hands were shaking as I left room 7 and headed to room 4. Mrs. Chen was supposed to be recovering from a minor surgery. When I opened her door, she was sitting straight up in bed, staring at the wall. Her heart monitor showed normal readings, but she wasn't blinking. She wasn't breathing either. I checked the timestamp on the security camera monitor in the hallway. According to the footage, Mrs. Chen hadn't moved for 3 hours. Not even a twitch. "Mrs. Chen?" I whispered. She didn't respond, just kept staring at that blank wall like she was watching the most interesting movie ever made. Room 9 was the worst. Mr. Roberts had been in a coma for 2 days after a car accident. When I opened his door, he was standing at the window, looking out at the parking lot. According to his chart, he hadn't been conscious since Tuesday. I recorded another voice memo, my voice shaking. 12:15 a.m. All 3 patients are moving and responsive, but vital signs indicate they're clinically dead. This doesn't make medical sense. I decided to check their medical charts more carefully. That's when I found Dr. Williams's notes from earlier that week. Notes that made my blood run cold. Mr. Martinez had been declared brain dead on October 15th. 5 days ago. Mrs. Chen had flatlined during surgery on October 17th. 3 days ago. Mr. Roberts had died from his injuries on October 18th. 2 days ago. According to the medical records, all 3 patients were legally dead, but their bodies hadn't started decomposing. The notes mentioned that this was medically impossible and that Dr. Williams had contacted specialists for consultation. The most disturbing part was a handwritten note at the bottom of each chart. Patient deceased, but body remains fresh. Electrical brain activity absent, but body maintains cellular function. Recommend immediate research into cause. I needed to check the morgue. If these 3 were walking around despite being dead, what about the others? The basement morgue was supposed to be empty, except for old Mrs. Garrett, who had passed away last week. But when I opened the door, I found 23 people standing around, talking quietly among themselves like they were at a boring office meeting. I recognized some of them. Mr. Thompson, who had died of a heart attack 2 months ago. Sarah Williams, the teenager who had overdosed in September. Even Mrs. Garrett was there, wearing the same dress her family had brought for her funeral. They all turned to look at me when I entered. Their eyes were the same empty black as Mr. Martinez's. "Hello, David," Mrs. Garrett said in that same flat voice. "We've been waiting for you to find us." I ran up those basement stairs faster than I'd ever moved in my life, my cleaning cart forgotten. But when I reached the main floor, Mr. Martinez was standing in the hallway. "David, you can't run from this. We need you to understand." "Understand what?" I managed to gasp out. "What we are now. What's keeping us here?" He led me to the break room and sat down at the small table. Mrs. Chen and Mr. Roberts joined us, moving with that same unnatural stillness. "We're not people anymore, David," Mr. Martinez explained. "We're incubators, food sources." "For what?" Mrs. Chen answered. "Something that lives in the medical equipment. It feeds on human electrical impulses, brain activity, heart rhythms, neural signals." They explained that 3 months ago, the clinic had installed a new MRI machine. It was supposed to be state-of-the-art, donated by a medical equipment company. But something had come with it, something that fed on bioelectricity. "It keeps our bodies alive so it can harvest our electrical energy continuously," Mr. Roberts said, like a farmer keeping livestock. I thought about the security cameras and pulled up the footage on my phone. The timestamp showed 2:30 a.m., but when I scrolled back through the night's recordings, I could see them. Black tendrils, like electrical cables, emerging from various pieces of medical equipment and connecting to the patients. Every patient who used the new MRI machine became a feeding vessel, Mrs. Chen continued. The creature controls our movements, keeps our bodies functional, but our minds, we're aware. We're trapped inside, watching. I thought about my mother. Her MRI appointment was scheduled for 9 a.m. that morning. "My mom," I whispered. "She's supposed to have a scan today." "Your mother's scan will make her perfect like us," Mr. Roberts said, and for the first time, I heard emotion in his voice. Sadness. David, you have to stop this. I tried calling my mom, but the phone lines were dead. The creature had spread through the building's electrical system, growing stronger from months of feeding on trapped patients. The lights began flickering as the entity sensed my plan to stop it. The medical equipment started beeping erratically. Even my flashlight was dimming. It knows you're going to try something, Mr. Martinez warned. It's been listening to everything. The only way to kill the creature was to cut power to the entire building. But that would also cut life support to any living patients. And it would kill all the vessels, the 23 people whose bodies were being kept alive artificially. As I headed toward the basement electrical panel, the dead patients began following me through the corridors. Not aggressively, but like they were escorting me. We want this to end, David, Mrs. Garrett said. We've been trapped for months. Please. The basement electrical room was behind the morgue. When I opened the panel, I could see what the creature really was. It wasn't just using the electrical system. It had become part of it. Black, biomechanical tendrils were woven through every wire, every circuit breaker. It pulsed with a rhythm that matched the heartbeats of its victims. As I reached for the main breaker, a voice spoke directly into my mind. Not through my ears, but somehow into my thoughts. David Park, your mother will live. I will spare her in exchange for your cooperation. Help me spread to other medical facilities, other towns, other cities. I could see my mom's face in my mind. Her smile when I told her about nursing, school. Her tears when the doctor explained how expensive her treatment would be. 23 people surrounded me in that basement room. All of them dead, all of them trapped, all of them looking at me with those empty black eyes. Choose, David, the creature whispered in my head. Your mother's life or their freedom. I thought about what my mom would want me to do. She'd raised me to do the right thing, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. I grabbed the main electrical panel and yanked it open, sparks flying everywhere. The building plunged into complete darkness. The hum of medical equipment died. The creature let out a sound that wasn't quite a scream, more like the whine of machinery breaking down. One by one, the patients around me collapsed, finally, truly at rest. I managed to record one last voice memo before my phone died. Power cut. Creature dead. Patients finally at rest. Mom scan canceled due to equipment failure. Building condemned due to electrical fire. I caused 23 people to die, but I saved everyone else. The electrical surge started a fire that consumed most of the building. I was found the next morning, unconscious but alive, near the electrical panel. The official report said I died from electrical shock while trying to fix a power outage, but the paramedics managed to revive me. 23 patients were declared dead when life support failed. Their families were told it was a tragic accident caused by faulty wiring. Most of them reported the same thing in the weeks that followed, dreams of their loved ones visiting to say goodbye, looking peaceful for the first time in months. Sacred Heart Medical was permanently closed. The new medical clinic that replaced it has equipment that's inspected extensively before installation. But sometimes, late at night, residents of Bone Valley report that their electronic devices, TVs, radios, cell phones, display heartbeat patterns on Bone Valley, their screens for just a few seconds before returning to normal. I never went back to cleaning medical facilities. I used the insurance money from the accident to pay for nursing school. My mom's diabetes is under control now, and she never did get that MRI. The new clinic uses a different machine from a different company. But sometimes, when I'm working my shift at the hospital where I'm now a registered nurse, I hear the faint hum of electrical equipment, and I remember those 23 faces looking at me in that basement. They were counting on me to set them free, and I did. My name is Jessica Wong, and I've been a package delivery driver for Southwest Express for 3 years now. I drive Route 23 through rural Arizona, 80 miles of desert roads, scattered ranches, and mobile homes where people depend on me to bring them everything from medicine to birthday gifts. I know every pothole, every dog, and every customer by name. In 3 years, I'd never had a single incident that couldn't be explained by a flat tire or a cranky customer. But what happened on November 14th, 2023, in a place called Scorpion Flats changed everything I thought I knew about my job. Route 23 isn't glamorous work. Most people don't want to drive 180 miles through the Arizona desert twice a week, stopping at places where the nearest neighbor might be 5 miles away. But I needed the money. My parents back in California are getting older, and their medical bills keep growing. The pay is decent, and I'd gotten comfortable with the routine. Load up the van at 7 a.m., hit the road by 8, and finish the route by 6 p.m. if everything goes smooth. My van is a standard white delivery truck with GPS tracking that sends my location back to dispatch every 15 minutes. I've got a two-way radio for emergencies and a handheld scanner for packages. The route takes me through some pretty empty country, places where cell service cuts out for miles at a time. That's why the radio is so important. Dispatch can always reach me, and I can always reach them. November 14th started like any other Tuesday. 23 packages to deliver, scattered across Scorpion Flats and the surrounding area. The weather was perfect, clear skies, temperature in the 70s. I'd driven this same route probably 100 times. I knew exactly where every customer liked their packages left, which dogs were friendly, and which houses had the motion sensor lights that would scare you half to death if you approached after dark. My first 8 stops went exactly as planned. Mrs. Garcia at the gas station, the Thompson family at the horse ranch, old Mr. Peterson, who always offered me coffee but never had anything stronger than instant. Normal people living normal lives in the middle of nowhere, happy to see me because I brought them pieces of the outside world. Then, I reached the Henderson Ranch. I'd been delivering to Bill and Martha Henderson for 2 years. They were in their 70s, lived alone on 40 acres with 3 dogs that would start barking the moment they heard my van coming up their dirt driveway. Those dogs, 2 German Shepherds and a mixed breed, were like an early warning system. You could hear them from a quarter mile away. But when I pulled up to their house at 10:35 a.m., everything was silent. I sat in my van for a minute, waiting for the dogs to start up. Nothing. The house looked normal, curtains drawn. Henderson's old pickup truck parked in its usual spot next to the barn. But something felt wrong. In 2 years, those dogs had never failed to announce my arrival. I grabbed their package, some kind of medical supply from what I could tell from the label, and walked up to their front door. Still no dogs. I knocked and called out, "Mr. Henderson? Mrs. Henderson? Package delivery." No answer. I tried the radio. "Dispatch, this is Jessica on Route 23. I'm at the Henderson Ranch and nobody's answering. Their dogs aren't around either. Should I leave the package?" Static for a few seconds, then Sandra's voice from dispatch. "Jessica, just leave it in the usual spot. They're probably out checking the cattle." But that didn't feel right. The Hendersons always told me when they were going to be away, and they never left their dogs behind. I walked around to the back of the house, thinking maybe they were working in their garden. That's when I saw the blood. It started as a few dark spots in the dirt near their back porch, then became a clear trail leading toward the desert. Not drops like you'd see from a small cut, but real blood. Enough that someone was badly hurt. I followed the trail for maybe 50 yards before I found the first dog. It was one of the German Shepherds, but it took me a second to recognize it. The animal had been torn apart with surgical precision. Its organs were missing, removed so cleanly that there were no ragged edges on the wounds. Whatever had done this wasn't wild. Wild animals don't work that neat. The other 2 dogs were scattered further along the trail, all in the same condition. Completely drained of blood, organs removed, but no claw marks or bite wounds like you'd expect from a mountain lion or coyote. My hands were shaking when I reached for the radio. "Dispatch, I need police at the Henderson Ranch immediately. The dogs are dead and there's a blood trail leading into the desert." "Copy that, Jessica. Stay with your vehicle. Help is on the way." But I couldn't stop following that trail. Something was pulling me forward. Some sick need to know what had happened to Bill and Martha. The blood led down into an irrigation ditch about 100 yards from their house. I found them there. Bill and Martha Henderson were lying side by side in the bottom of the ditch. Just like the dogs, they'd been completely drained of blood but had no visible wounds. Their skin was pale gray, like old paper, but their clothes weren't even torn. They looked peaceful, like they'd just laid down for a nap and never woke up. I was backing away from the ditch, fighting the urge to throw up, when my radio crackled to life. "Jessica, this is dispatch. We just got a call from the Henderson Ranch. Bill and Martha called in sick today." "They're fine." I stared at the radio like it had just spoken in a foreign language. "Sandra, that's impossible. I'm looking at their bodies right now." "Jessica, I'm showing a call from their landline 10 minutes ago. Martha Henderson said they both had the flu and asked you to leave any packages by the front door." My blood went cold. If the Hendersons were dead in this ditch who had called dispatch, I was running back toward my van when I saw the figure walking toward me from the desert. At first, I thought it might be someone coming to help, but as it got closer, I realized something was very wrong with the way it moved. Too smooth, too steady, like it was gliding instead of walking. I grabbed my binoculars from the van and focused on the approaching figure. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, and impossibly thin. Its arms hung down past its knees, and its fingers were longer than they should be. But the worst part was its face. From a distance, it looked almost human. But there was something wrong with the proportions, like someone had tried to draw a person from memory and gotten the details slightly off. The creature was maybe 200 yards away and closing fast. I jumped in my van, started the engine, and punched the gas. The speedometer hit 45 as I raced down the dirt road leading away from the Henderson Ranch. In my side mirror, I could see the creature pursuing me, and that's when I realized how much trouble I was in. It was keeping pace with my van without even seeming to try. Its long legs covered ground with impossible efficiency, each stride carrying it further than should have been physically possible. "Dispatch, something's chasing my van," I radioed, fighting to keep my voice steady. "It's not human. I repeat, this is not a human. Jessica, slow down and describe what you're seeing." Before I could answer, the thing leaped onto my van's roof. The metal groaned and buckled under its weight. I could hear claws scraping against the roof, then the sound of metal being peeled back like the lid on a tin can. Whatever was up there was tearing through my van like it was made of cardboard. I swerved hard to the right, then left, trying to shake it off. The van went up on 2 wheels. For a terrifying second, before slamming back down, the creature held on. I could see the Morrison mobile home coming up ahead, my next delivery stop. I floored the gas pedal and drove straight off the road, bouncing through the desert scrub at 40 miles per hour. Cactus and creosote bushes scraped against the sides of the van as I fought to keep control. Finally, the creature dropped off. In my mirror, I watched it disappear into the landscape like it had never been there at all. I sat in my van outside the Morrison place for 5 minutes, trying to catch my breath and figure out what to do next. My roof was shredded, my radio was crackling with static, and I had 16 more deliveries to make, Mrs. Morrison must have heard me pull up because she came out of her trailer before I could even grab her package. She was a small woman in her 60s who lived alone and always invited me in for lemonade. But something was wrong with her voice when she called out to me. "Jessica, dear, come inside. I have fresh cookies." It was Mrs. Morrison's face and Mrs. Morrison's body, but the voice coming out of her mouth belonged to Martha Henderson. I dropped the package and ran back to my van. As I drove away, I could hear her calling after me in that wrong voice. "Jessica, don't be afraid. Come back, dear. We're all here waiting for you." That's when I understood what I was dealing with. The creature hadn't just killed the Hendersons, it had somehow taken their voices, and now it was using Mrs. Morrison's body to speak with Martha Henderson's words. I grabbed my radio with shaking hands. "Dispatch, whatever killed the Hendersons can copy human voices. It's impersonating people on my route." The response came immediately, but the voice that answered wasn't Sandra from Dispatch. It was Bill Henderson's warm, familiar drawl. "Jessica, this is Dispatch. Return to the depot immediately. We'll sort this all out when you get back." My hands went numb. The creature had somehow gotten to the dispatch center, or it could mimic voices over radio frequencies. Either way, I couldn't trust anyone on the radio anymore. I was approaching my next stop, the Williams Ranch, when my personal cell phone rang. I almost didn't answer it, but the caller ID showed my own name. I picked up the phone with a trembling hand. "Hello?" My own voice answered me from the other end of the line. "Jessica, stop running. You can't escape us. Just pull over, and everything will be easy." I threw the phone out the window and pressed harder on the gas pedal. That's when I noticed the other delivery vans. In my rearview mirror, I could see 3 white vans exactly like mine, coming up fast on the desert road behind me. My radio crackled to life with multiple voices calling in my name. "Dispatch, we found Jessica. She's heading north on Canyon Road. We have visual contact. Moving to intercept. Jessica's vehicle is damaged. She needs immediate assistance." All the voices were mine. Perfect copies of my own voice, calling in my location to guide the hunt. I realized I'd been surrounded. The creatures weren't just mimicking voices. They'd been replacing delivery drivers across the entire route system. How many people had they killed? How many of my fellow drivers were already gone? I abandoned my van at the entrance to Scorpion Flats Canyon and ran into the rocks on foot. Behind me, I could hear my own voice calling from multiple directions. "Jessica, we're here to help. Don't run, Jessica. You're safe with us. Jessica, your parents are worried about you." I climbed higher into the canyon, using skills I'd learned hiking in California as a kid. The creatures were fast on flat ground, but they seemed to have trouble with the steep, rocky terrain. My radio was still clipped to my belt, and I made one final transmission. "This is Jessica Wong, Route 23. Multiple entities are using delivery vehicles to hunt humans in the Scorpion Flats area. They can perfectly mimic human voices and have been replacing people for months. Everyone on my route, I think they're all gone. If anyone receives this transmission, stay away from rural delivery areas. They're using our own systems against us." I dropped the radio and kept climbing. They found my van 3 days later in Scorpion Flats Canyon. The GPS showed my last known location at 2:15 p.m. on November 14th. I was officially listed as missing, presumed dead from animal attack. But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. The official investigation reported that all customers on Route 23 were present and accounted for. Bill and Martha Henderson, Mrs. Morrison, the Williams family, 2 all live and well. When asked about their delivery driver, they all said the same thing. "Jessica? She seemed fine the last time we saw her, though something seemed a little different about her lately." Southwest Express suspended all rural delivery routes indefinitely. They cited increased wild animal activity and driver safety concerns. But local residents in Scorpion Flats still report seeing delivery trucks driving empty routes at night and voices calling for help from deep in the desert. I've been living off the grid ever since, moving from town to town, always watching for white delivery vans. Because I know they're still out there, wearing the faces of people they've killed, living their lives, working their jobs. And sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I can hear my own voice on truck radios, guiding them to their next hunting ground. If you work in rural delivery, long-haul trucking, or any job that takes you to isolated places, listen to me. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, run. Don't try to be a hero. Don't worry about completing your route or keeping your job. Because once they have your voice, they have everything they need to become you. My name is Tony Russo, and I've been an auto mechanic for 15 years. I inherited Russo's garage from my father when I was 25, and it's been my life ever since. We're the only auto repair shop for 60 miles in any direction here in Copper Basin, Arizona. Population 423 on a good day. Most of our business comes from local ranchers and the occasional traveler whose car breaks down on Highway 191. I've worked on everything from rusted-out pickup trucks to fancy RVs. I've pulled engines, rebuilt transmissions, and fixed more flat tires than I can count. My dad taught me that every car tells a story through its damage, and after all these years, I thought I'd heard them all. I was wrong. Copper Basin sits on top of what used to be one of Arizona's biggest copper mines. The mining company pulled out in 1987, leaving behind a network of tunnels that run under our entire town. Most folks don't think about what's beneath their feet. We've got our horror, lives above ground, my wife Maria, our 6-month-old son Danny, and the garage that keeps us fed. But in November 2023, I started seeing damage patterns that didn't make sense. And by the time I figured out what was really happening, it was almost too late. It started on November 12th with Mrs. Henderson's Ford Explorer. She brought it in Monday morning, madder than a wet hen. "Something got under my truck last night," she said. pointing at the undercarriage. Tore up everything underneath. I got down on my creeper and rolled under her vehicle. What I saw made me scratch my head. The brake lines were severed clean, like someone took a sharp knife to them. The oil pan had 3 perfectly round holes punched through it. Metal shavings were scattered across the skid plate. "Mrs. Henderson, you hit anything on the road?" "Maybe some road construction debris." "Tony, that truck was parked in my driveway all night. I heard scratching sounds around 2 in the morning, but when I looked out the window, I didn't see nothing." I wrote up the work order and got her fixed up, but something bothered me about those cuts. Too clean, too precise. Animals don't damage cars like that. 2 days later, Jake Morrison brought in his Chevy Silverado with identical damage. Same clean cuts on the brake lines. Same round holes in the oil pan. Same metal shavings. "I swear something was crawling around under my truck," Jake said. "My dog was going crazy all night, barking at something under there." By Friday, I'd seen 4 more vehicles with the exact same damage pattern. Every single one had been parked overnight. Every owner reported hearing scratching or movement underneath their vehicle. And every time, the damage was too organized, too systematic for any animal I knew. On November 18th, Sheriff Williams brought in his patrol car. Soon as I saw the damage, my blood went cold. Whatever was doing this had gotten bold enough to attack a police vehicle, right in the station parking lot. "Sheriff, you see anything on the security cameras?" "That's the weird part, Tony. Cameras show nothing. But listen to this." He played audio from his dash cam. Clear as day, you could hear metal scraping against metal, followed by what sounded like something large moving beneath the vehicle. I spent my lunch break examining those metal shavings under my magnifying glass. Mixed in with the steel fragments were flakes of something that looked like copper ore. Bright green and blue streaks, the kind you'd find in old mine samples. That's when it hit me. Every damaged vehicle had been parked directly above the old mine shaft locations. I pulled out my dad's survey maps from the 1,980 seconds and marked each incident. Perfect match. At 12:30, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going into those tunnels. The entrance to the main shaft sits about 50 yards behind my garage, hidden by overgrown mesquite bushes. The opening was supposed to be sealed, but the concrete barrier had cracked over the years, leaving a gap just wide enough for a man to squeeze through. I grabbed my helmet with the LED light and my phone to record everything. If something was living down there, I needed proof. The air in the tunnel was cool and damp, with a metallic smell that reminded me of pennies. My light beam revealed fresh scratches along the rock walls, deep gouges, like something with serious claws had been sharpening them on stone. 20 minutes in, I found the first piece of shed skin, 8 inches long, covered in scales that had a weird copper-colored shine to them. The thing was still flexible, like it had been shed recently. I followed the main tunnel deeper, my helmet camera recording everything. The scratches on the walls got deeper and more frequent. Then I heard it, a sound like metal grinding against metal, coming from somewhere ahead in the darkness. The tunnel opened into a natural cavern about the size of my garage. My light swept across dozens of metallic eggs, each one about the size of a football, arranged in perfect rows along the cavern floor. They had a surface that looked like hammered copper, and they were warm to the touch. I filmed everything, my hands shaking as I tried to keep the camera steady. Inside some of the eggs, I could see shapes moving. Dark silhouettes with too many joints, pressing against the metallic shells. That's when I heard the sound that still gives me nightmares. A wet sliding noise, like a giant snake moving through water. Something big was coming through the tunnel behind me. I spun around and my light caught it full on. 12 feet of pure nightmare. The thing looked like a cross between a snake and an armored centipede, covered in copper-colored scales that reflected my light like polished metal. Its head was triangular, with 6 black eyes arranged in 2 rows. When it opened its mouth, I saw rows of teeth that looked like they'd been filed from steel. The creature moved like liquid metal, flowing along the tunnel walls with impossible speed. I ran. My helmet camera captured everything as I sprinted through those tunnels. Behind me, I could hear more of them. Different sounds, different sizes. The entire tunnel system was alive with movement. I burst out of the mine entrance at 4 o'clock, gasping and shaking. But when I tried to call Sheriff Williams, My phone was dead. Not just low battery, completely fried, like something had scrambled its circuits. I ran back to the garage and grabbed my landline. The phone company recording said all circuits were busy. My CB radio was picking up nothing but static. Even my computer wouldn't boot up properly. That's when Maria called from the house. "Tony, the power keeps flickering, and there's something wrong with the water pressure." I looked out my garage window toward town. Half the streetlights were out. The ones still working were dimming and brightening, like something was interfering with the electrical grid. At 6:30, Mrs. Patterson came running into the garage, screaming about something trying to get into her basement through the floor drain. 10 minutes later, Jake Morrison called on his cell phone, the last working phone in town, apparently, saying something had torn a hole in his water main and was making off with pieces of copper pipe. By 7 o'clock, I could see them. Metallic shapes moving through the storm drains, slithering across the street in broad daylight. They were everywhere, and they were all heading toward anything metal they could find. I watched one of the creatures, about 8 feet long, wrap itself around Eddie's pickup truck. Its body pulsed and contracted, and I swear I could hear the metal groaning as the thing absorbed it somehow. The truck's body panels started dissolving, like ice in hot water. That's when I realized what we were dealing with. These things didn't just live off metal, they needed it to survive. And our entire town was built on top of their hunting ground. I barricaded Maria and Danny in the garage office, the only room in the building with concrete walls and no metal fixtures. Outside, I could hear 8 or 9 of the creatures tearing apart my shop. The sound of my tools being consumed was like listening to someone eat aluminum foil. "Tony!" Maria screamed from the office. The baby's crying won't stop, and something's scratching at the door. I looked through the office window and saw one of the smaller creatures, maybe 6 feet long, testing the door handle with what looked like metallic claws. It was focused on the doorknob, trying to figure out how to get at the metal. That's when I noticed something crucial. The creatures were attracted to electrical activity. Every time Danny cried or Maria's cell phone buzzed, they moved toward the sound. They weren't just eating metal, they were hunting anything that generated electrical impulses. The town's power grid failed completely at 10 o'clock. The water system died 30 minutes later as the creatures consumed the underground pipes. My final radio transmission went out at 10:30. This is Tony Russo at Russo's Garage. Copper Basin is under attack by unknown creatures. They're eating our infrastructure. We need immediate evacuation. Nobody answered. At 11, I watched through my window as the creatures started targeting people. Mrs. Chen, who had a pacemaker, was dragged screaming into a storm drain. Bob Williams, whose leg was held together with metal pins from a car accident, didn't even have time to run. The creatures could sense metal inside people's bodies. Fillings, jewelry, medical implants, it didn't matter. If you had metal on you or in you, you were prey. I made the hardest decision of my life at midnight. We had to get out through the mine system. It was the only way to reach the highway without crossing open ground where the creatures were hunting. Using my backup flashlight, the LED one was too electrical, too attractive to them. I led Maria and Danny back into the tunnels. We moved slowly, quietly, following the original survey maps my father had left me. The main nest was bigger than I'd imagined. Thousands of eggs lined the cavern walls, and hundreds of the adult creatures were tending to them. Some were bringing back metal, car parts, pipes, wire, to feed the developing young. Others were bringing back darker things I didn't want to look at too closely. We made it through using the old escape tunnel that led to the highway. The last thing I did was collapse the main shaft entrance with 3 sticks of dynamite I'd kept for clearing tree stumps. The explosion brought down half the tunnel system, but I knew it was just buying time. The official report says Copper Basin was evacuated due to geological instability. 89 residents are listed as missing, presumed dead in mine collapses. The remaining shafts were sealed with concrete, and the area declared a geological hazard zone. My family and I were relocated to Phoenix under what they called witness protection. The government classified all the mine surveys and geological reports. They told us never to talk about what really happened. But sometimes, late at night, I checked the satellite images of Copper Basin online. The town is still abandoned, but there are new patterns in the desert around it. Geometric shapes that look like tunnel openings. dark lines spreading outward from where the mine used to be. Local legends in the area talk about copper worms that emerge during electrical storms, seeking metal to consume. The old-timers say they've been there since before the mines, waiting in the deep places of the earth. I still wake up sometimes, hearing that wet sliding sound in my dreams. And every time there's a thunderstorm, I find myself checking all the metal in our house, making sure nothing's gone missing, because I know they're still down there, growing, spreading, waiting. And someday, they're going to need more than just the metal we leave on the surface. They're going to come looking for what's underground in every town that sits above old mines. And when they do, I hope those people are smarter than we were. I hope they run.